Hello, hello, hello. Still sending data according to my thing. Alright. I believe we are live. Yep, I can hear myself on the YouTubes. So the goal here is that I gotta share this link on YouTube. Happens when I call NCOSE live for a comment on Tate and Eliza. Using the available contact number. Come on in and let's find out. I gotta put some hashtags in this. Alright. Oh, wait a minute. Wait, the story, I believe the Cashman story is live. What? The Cashman story is live? Someone just messaged me. And the Cashman, Eliza Blue, and the Perceptual Traumas February 6th. This is part one of a multi-series. Okay, well, I suppose I have to read this. Suppose I have to read this. Alright, here we go. Thanks to the person who just emailed this to me out of the blue. Because that is the date, I believe is, yep, it's February 6th, and this was published February 6th. So, let's see what Cashman has to say for himself. Because everybody has been like, he's not gonna be fair, he's just a simp, blah blah blah. What we talk about when we talk about abuse, survival, big tech, condemnation, and human trafficking by Shane Cashman. On January 24th, 2023, members of the Science and Security Board pulled a black hood off the doomsday, revealing humanity, according to them, was 90 seconds close to midnight. What does that have to do with anything? Okay. On their own words, the closest to nuclear annihilation we've ever been. The spectacle looked something like ISIS recording themselves about to head back off the head of a hostage. Oh my goodness. There's been a lot of talk of doom and war and the culture incinerating stuff. I don't think that's unique to modernity. but the internet certainly exasperates it. We've always been wired to both fear and fetishize our own destruction. Interesting. I gotta make this bigger. I mean, so far, this really isn't the take that I was hoping for. It's hardly even really about her. Okay, here we go. Now we're getting to Eliza. I was thinking about all this doom when Eliza Blue called me on the same day those scientists pushed their hands on the symbolic clock closer to midnight. She had been twinning on Twitter. Eliza and Doomsday Clock don't really have anything to do with each other, no. But they were supposedly connected in my mind. What? The end of the world is always upon us. These days it can feel like our personal destruction is the end of the world. And other days the end of the world is some distant thought that has nothing to do with us. But at that moment, as she was trending on Twitter for accusations of lying about being trafficked and censoring critics with the help of Elon Musk, it kind of felt like this was a personal doomsday scenario for Eliza. Okay. In the past few months, I've had this strange opportunity to speak with people at the exact moment when they were trending on Twitter. And they were never trending for anything totally positive. Trends typically bring about waves of hate and posturing and ruthless criticism. This can have a positive or net effect depending on the target. Whether I was talking to Ye or Carrie Lake or Eliza Blue. It was surprising to me that despite their doom attached to their names, especially in the digital space, each of these remained oddly hopeful. I could tell it was part of faith or part of trying to convince themselves everything was okay, or a bit of both. Blue gained notoriety over the last 3 years as a public advocate for survivors of human trafficking. She also said that she is a survivor of trafficking herself. It has been the subject of many articles as well as a guest on a number of podcasts where she has discussed in part her survival story and what she believes needs to be done to help those who might be trafficked. Her profile exploded when Eliza and Elon Musk did a Twitter Spaces. According to her, that was the first time Elon spoke to her directly. She had also emailed him solutions for the platform that she told me she offered at no charge. She says that Elon also didn't ask for the solutions, she just sent them. Before they interacted over her tweet about Yoel Roth, Elon had liked some of her tweets. Before her story was put into question, Blue seemed like one of the rare people on Twitter around whom various political factions could rally. It was hard to argue against what she was most vocal about: saving from the perils of human trafficking, removing child pornography from Twitter, and seeking to work with big tech to eliminate the ways in which traffickers exploit victims through the internet. I'm not gonna lie, I mean, that's true. I think that's fair. Very fair. I mean, something like this is designed to appeal more to your heart, okay, than to your emotions. This is kind of the way it is. Again, it's this whole thing about outrage culture. No matter who you're talking about, a lot of the podcasters in this online space, they live or die by whatever's trending at the moment. Okay? They live and they die about it when it comes to making their money, when it comes to publishing these stories, when it comes to their money and how they survive. They live off of helping manipulate whatever it is that people are upset about and magnifying it and feeding off of it. It was easy and righteous case of support. One of her most popular tweets, which was friend profile, showcased the maddening nightmare of a person who couldn't get Twitter to take down underage pornographic images that circulated the platform. It says, reminder, a 13-year-old minor survivor begged Twitter to remove a video sexually exploiting him. Twitter reviewed the content and said no. They had his government ID showing that he was a minor at the time. The video had over 150,000 views, over 2,000 retweets. But it's weird though, because somehow I never see this crap. And I'm glad that I never see it. But to me, most of the time you see this kind of crap, you're looking for it. And it's really sad that over 100,000 people and over 2,000 retweets means that at least over 2,000 people, whatever this video actually showed, they They were interested and they wanted more of it. It's crazy. The Department of Homeland Security had to step in to get Twitter to remove the video. Twitter refused to take responsibility. The lawsuit headed to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court. But by the time she was trending at the Doomsday Clock ticked forward, it was because people who initially championed her were now calling on what they believed to be outright lies in her survivor story. They fear she not only lied, but she was also profiting off of her victims. If you Google her name as of this story's publication, you will see how many articles there are putting her life story into question. From Post-Millennial to Unheard or the Daily Beast. There have been a thread making the rounds of Twitter that broke down all the inconsistency in her timeline. The thread was so damaging, it even called into question her age. Many users raged that they had helped to give Eliza a platform, only to find out that she seemingly made up her whole story. This whole article, like, I don't know quite. I don't. It's not feeling like definitely an expose so far about her specifically. It seems like it's more speaking to the online culture itself that kind of got us to where we are. And I'll be interesting to see later what everybody else has to say about this. The accusations remind me of Don Draper from Mad Men, A Story of Stolen Valor. A weak soldier steals the identity of another soldier who actually died in battle. It was as if she'd shed her skin and now Twitter had finally exposed her. It pointed to a long list of aliases she'd had used over the years. She'd been Eliza Cuts, Eliza Sipe, which I think is how it's pronounced. Eliza knows her legal name is Eliza Morthland. At face value, her identity seemed like a constant mutation. Yeah? Yeah. It does. Because it is. What do you mean at face value? It is! She has constantly avoided specifically saying that she is related to the Morthland family. And that's gotten her into trouble. Internet sleuths found all the time she's been seen on TV or in music videos or in modeling campaigns, calling into question her timeline of having been a victim of trafficking. If she'd done all these shows, many Twitter users must only be in it for fame. Everything seemed like a lie. The initial threat culminated in the internet scouring the internet for as much information as possible that she was in fact a fraud. Well, yeah. Yeah, I've been doing that. At this point, it doesn't seem like he's trying to say that what she did. If she'd done all these shows, many Twitter users said she must be only in it for fame. Everything seemed like a lie. This is just like culminated in the internet scouring the internet for as much information as possible to prove that she was in fact a fraud. Eventually, this thread attracted those who were once extremely supportive of Eliza and her cause. Larger accounts shared images from the video of her bare ass and some questions regarding the validity of Eliza's story. Her ass was never. I don't recall her ass ever being completely bare. They tagged Eliza and waited for a response. It seemed like everyone was waiting, but the initial response was that these larger accounts were suspended. The narrative switched from Eliza has been lying this whole time to she is using her contacts within Twitter to censor critics. Eliza said she would die on the hill of free speech, yet as she moved like this seemed to many like it was not only clear censorship, but also more sinister insight into Twitter 2.0. With Elon at the helm, was operating the same bad faith that favors for his friends. Was Elon dishing personal help to keep certain names clean? It seems to me like right now, this seems like he's building up to tell everyone, here's all the things that you're wrong about. Instead of agreeing that everyone is right and that she's an outright fraud. That's what it's reading like to me. But maybe he's gonna prove me wrong here. Take off this chat overlay. Was Elon dishing out personal help to keep certain names clean? If she was behind the suspicion, then she was an outright hypocrite. A lot of us were worried how sharing something in the digital public square, something that seemed publicly available, could result in suspension or a ban. The anti-establishment minded on Twitter, who had been relatively rejoicing as Elon acquired more, now having flashbacks to what Jack Dorsey's Twitter felt like. Another digital landscape monopolized by the tech delights, who ruled subjectively. For the record, I also don't agree with Musk ban of people like Yi and Alex Jones. I believe in true amnesty for all the public square in terms of free speech, and despite Elon's personal feelings about these men, I believe they should be allowed back immediately. Okay, so what about the people that have gotten suspended over this? Almost as soon as the bans happened, the rumors started to spread. She must be sleeping with Elon. She was a secret shadow agent inside the Twitter, dictating the terms of service to her own benefit. And now I was on the phone with her. I had previously planned to write a profile on Eliza, and we had been discussing when to schedule a time for her to visit in Quad Cities, Illinois area. For me to visit her in the Quad Cities, Illinois area. I heard parts of her story that she's shared on various podcasts, and allowed me to share an in-depth understanding of what happened in her life. It was now that her entire story had been picked apart in the Twitter sphere, it was safe to say I had more questions than I bargained for. Eliza and I had met in person once previously. Okay. So he's admitting that he's having questions, but I don't know. I don't know what he's accomplishing with this interview. I don't know. So I'm gonna tweet here. Okay. This has turned into a blind reaction into Jane Cashman's article on Eliza Wu. I'd heard parts of her story that she shared on various podcasts and helped her to share an in-depth understanding of what happened in her life. Now that their entire story had been picked apart in the Twitter sphere, it was safe to say I had more questions than I bargained for. And Eliza and I had met in person once previously. We happened to be guests on Timcast RL on January 7th, 2023. Eliza began that episode by reading statements from women who claimed to be victims of Andrew Tate. Tate had recently been arrested in Minnesota for accusations of human trafficking. I told her live on the show that I was suspicious of the Me Too movement and the way it infiltrated and destroyed accusations of merit. I believe Me Too oversaturated the culture with false accusations. I believe some horrific people were taken down by Me Too, but that's a positive. But there was an insidious fallout where any whiff of accusation without any due diligence could destroy a person. It was absurd to see the court of public opinion be swayed so easily by just a few accusations and zero proof. Is he trying to say that there's zero proof that she's lying? Where is he going with this? Because it's a very long article that's recapping everything we kind of know so far, everything that we kind of see played out in real time, but it's not really addressing it. Is she a liar or is she not? Later on in the episode of IRL, Eliza asked me what it would take for people to believe survivors, and I said transparency. I said it's unfortunate, but the flood of false accusations had emboldened widespread pessimism. It was difficult to believe anyone anymore, especially over the last few years where distrust between citizens and elites had widened to a Grand Canyon-sized disconnect. For she and I had met in person, our official interaction happened in a group chat between Yi, Eliza, and myself. What? Why were all three of them in a group chat? I had just left Yi's place in LA, and she just recently talked about wait until I collaborate with Yi. What? What is happening? What is happening? I just left Yi's place in LA and yet spent the weekend discussing, among other things, the shape of his campaign for president of the United States. On topic they kept coming back to was human trafficking. Eliza's name popped into my head when I was in the airport, so I asked for her permission to start a contact Yi. She obliged, and then Yi started the group chat. Okay. Interesting. Why did he think that it was important that the two of them connect? Like, why was he immediately like, okay, the two of these need to become chat buddies? So I asked for permission to send her contact to Yi, she obliged, and then Yi started the group chat. It was the way that Eliza responded to that text initial from Yi that gave me pause to go full tilt and accusing her of operating solely out of fame. I still didn't know her personality at all, nor did I expect the recent accusations, but I think it's worth sharing this, despite it being a private interaction. Wait, is he concerned about accusing her of operating fully on fame? What is happening? Why is this? Okay, let's just keep going. And I wish he'd have actual screen grabs here. Maybe he'll have actual screen grabs. Yeah, I got Eliza number from Shane. Let's stop all pornography and sex trafficking, starting with Twitter. The actual he's got screen grabs. Yay, he's into screen grabs. Yes, Eliza, I got your number from Lane. Let's stop all pornography and sex trafficking, starting with Twitter. The actual freedom of all people is the most important fight. No public stunt, by the way, and I'm not going to ask for funding or anything. I do everything on my own with an old-ass iPhone. God. That's not true, though! That's not... Dude, at what point you could literally donate to her Twitter via this little donation thing that you could send her money for whatever. She's done multiple GoFundMe. Okay. It was discussed on Timcast IRL that I would write a profile, and I agreed to it. She shared it publicly, and now that the rejector story is using those posts as retroactive proof, and now those that reject her story are using those posts as retroactive proof that I should not be taken seriously as a journalist, and I understand that concern. Twitter users started reposting tweets of me saying nice things about Eliza from about a month prior to the writing of this article, with a clip of me commending her for her work and telling her I'm a fan, which was no different than when anyone on most podcasts had done. But I also had a lot of questions. However, I also tried to send some grace and patience to those who have been attacked by my mom. And I guess I can appreciate that. That is maybe fair. This is a small collection of the criticism that I received as a prayer for fun. Stop making this about you! This isn't about you. This is about whether... Oh my god. This is a litmus test for Shane Cashman. He is a knob gobbling fluffer. The internet is washing. Shane is a clown. He's a fluffer boy. This will destroy his career. He has no integrity. He is cringe as fuck. He's got a hard on for any woman who love bombs him because he's never experienced this amount of love. That's rough. He shouldn't talk to grifters. All Twitter is watching. He's unprofessional. He's just a fiction writer. Fair enough. That's fair. I like to say this. I seek to tell in-depth stories to the best of my ability. I have many of the same questions you might have and more, and I report at the pace that suits the answers I collect. I try not to peddle on knee-jerk reactions, and I've kind of talked about this. I don't want knee-jerk reactions to things. I don't want that. I'm not here for the needs of the algorithm, but I don't perform. I do not perform for twins, nor do I perform for the insatiable. Yes, you do. That's the only reason that you write about anything. It's the only reason that you write about Yi. It's the only reason that... I trust my readers will afford me the patience and grace I need to make sense of this story. The accusations are serious. A person's life story, which include traumatic accounts, and calls into question. Outside of that, the world of human facts is clearly disturbing, horrific morality. I must tread with caution. Okay. Now I feel the need to share another private conversation because it seems relevant to the reporting of this particular story. By the night that Eliza and I were both on IRL, I'd also been in talks with Andrew Tate to write a profile on him. I spoke with him directly in the days leading up to his arrest in Romania. For those that don't know, he's been accused of human trafficking. I don't know. I don't understand why any of this... Why... He could have gone about this so many ways. Her convo with Ye, that's her usual get in with them response. We've seen her say that before, compiled more than a dozen receipts that say otherwise. Yeah. And see, she knows how to manipulate and say exactly what you want to hear. That's my impression. And he's having a hard time separating himself from that, I think. But he's trying. I think he's trying. But right now, this article is more about him and what all this backlash has meant for him. Perhaps saying this to you now will kill the potential of the story, which I still like to write, but it's important for me to say that I would afford Tate the same amount of patience and grace to tell the story as I would Eliza Blue. I don't really know either of them. But I'd like to give them the space to find their lives to me for the page to the best of their ability. After the thread about Eliza went viral, her timeline didn't make sense to me either. There seems to be major gaps in her story. I'm sure I wasn't alone in having this nightmarish thought experiment. On one hand, I preferred she was lying because from the bits of her own story she has shared, I'd rather not want that happen to anyone. Wait a minute. On one hand, I would have preferred she was lying because from the bits of her own story she has shared, I'd rather not want that to happen to anyone. On the other hand, if she was lying, I feel personally let down. I don't believe it should erase the advocacy I've seen her do on Twitter and in podcasts, but make it extremely challenging to take her seriously moving forward. Even as I personally struggle with who does and doesn't deserve redemption. If she had profited off the victims, it would be dirty. If she was exposed as merely a fame whore, I wouldn't be surprised. No real insult to Eliza, but the internet is filled with them. So another joining the ranks wouldn't be the slightest bit shocking. I think what... This isn't moving. I think what others found most ignorance, aside from the supposed power she had within Twitter, is that there was a possibility Eliza really could have popped up difference to gain fame and money. But again, the current economy deals in the currency of victimhood. We're all numb to the grift. And now, as we're supposedly on the edge of nuclear annihilation, according to some grim-faced scientists, I had Eliza on the phone, who didn't seem nearly as anxious as I felt. I had questions, and she promised I could ask anything. It seemed like I was flying to Illinois to interrogate something about the darkest lie someone could tell or the darkest experience someone could go through. My goal was to establish a timeline as Eliza's words, and then crowdfund with the timeline that's featured in the thread that went viral, plus all the other information that comes to light every few minutes on Twitter. Either Eliza's built on an elaborate story for profit, or she was telling the truth, and we got the whole thing wrong. Neither seemed to be the either answer. My distrust points in all directions. Either she was the Josie Smollett of anti-establishment Twitter, or somehow all of anti-establishment Twitter had become Josie Smollett of victim blaming. I didn't really like the process any way you cut it. Okay. Because it was hard. Eliza picked me up at her father's... What? Picked her up at her father's... Oh, my word. Eliza picked me up in her father's car, and we drove to the world's largest truck stop, Iowa 80. A 24-hour truck stop utopia with the restaurant on one supply of cowboy boots. Sorry, I have to yawn. She seemed oddly positive. She wore a heavy black Tesla winter coat. Really, I thought all the clothes this woman could wear of all days. She chose a Tesla coat. It was 7 degrees, and she was her one, and she said it was her one and only warm coat. I later asked how she got it. All my Tesla gear was given to me by a friend. He worked for Tesla. We have known each other for 2 years before all this happened. My old winter coat was finished. I pulled out the Tesla coat this year because it's what I have. She was looking at her phone reading an email. Bob Ombley had notified her that they canceled an event they had planned to do together. It's heartbreaking, she said. I needed my Christian brothers. I'm so pissed that they would cancel. Well, what? Like, why should this come as a surprise? And this was the first time I ever heard about the Babylon Bee even canceling. There was actually no justifiable reason for this point that it could go well for her or for them to continue that event. Well, I guess I'm the guy that talks to people the rest of society rejects, in a sense that's you right now on Twitter. It was mostly small talk on the way to get food. We discussed her childhood, being homeschooled, and how she and her family, including her younger sister, had moved from the Quad Cities to Denver and back. As we took our seats at the truck stop diner, I was alerted by colleagues via text that some people have announced father's personal address, both home and office, and were claiming to be on their way to film the location. I was going to be staying at our parents' house for the duration of my visit. No, that was something I hadn't heard. Are you reading Twitter? I asked, referring to the barrage of comments about our life and the images. Everyone who's done anything with her has been getting tagged and everything, too. Friends are telling me that my silence is making everything worse. She said, right now, people don't want to hear anything from me. There's literally nothing I can say. What can I say? Nothing I do will appease everybody. I can't be too mean. I can't be too nice. So many people have made their minds up. Well, yeah. Because none of it makes any sense. That's true. I said, wondering how the fuck I was going to navigate the story. I was hesitant to even ask her about all this. I'd be either exposing her to a lie, or perhaps I would be making her read some deeply troubling trauma. The waitress brought us our waters and our meals, and so I guess we better start with the questions. I asked her how she defined human trafficking. Force, fraud, or coercion for the sale of labor of sex. Anyone under the age of 18, engaging in any commercial sexual activity for goods or services or money, is a victim of human trafficking. She rattled it off quickly. Under 18, she said, it's not automatically a victim of human trafficking if they're engaged in commercial sex. That's not a question, a gray area. How did the trafficking start with you? I met him when I was about 15, she said. Where? At a concert. Out here. Who was he? A photographer. Can you name him? I can't. Why? Legal reasons. We're gonna come back to that, I said. I knew she was going to name names. She'd said as much to me on Timcast RL, and I had to insist on multiple times that naming names would be one of the best ways to clear her own. It would allow me and other journalists to do more digging in the story. The lack of a name, the lack of a champion doesn't help. But if she says there are legal reasons, that for now, that's the best I can get out of her. Why did you leave for LA? I asked. Once I had my permit, I was out of here, she said. Which is funny because all I wanted to do now was stay here. Was this relationship with the older guy? He groomed me. Grooming how? Finding out my vulnerabilities would make me leave my family and come to LA. He knew exactly what to say. It was probably the smartest they ever had. Was he talking sexual with you as well? No, it was all about the dream world, the opportunities, which were promises of your rock star stuff. And how old are you? 15 when I met him. 17 when I moved to LA, she said. He knows your age at this point from the beginning, yes. How did you pull that? How did you pull that? I said, thinking of my children. I've never let it happen, I said, thinking of my children. Were your parents under some type of spell from this person, I asked? It sounded like they had no reason to believe this wasn't going to be a legit opportunity for their daughter. Her mom would later tell me at the time Eliza would be turning 8 soon as well, and that there would be no stopping her. So, her parents are backing her on this. Mom would later tell me that at the time, Eliza would be turning 18 soon as well, and there would be no stopping her. How did you get to LA? I asked. My dad moved me out there. I mean, is it possible? Is it possible that she went to LA initially on false pretenses? She could probably tell, but I was watching any body language, eye movement that would seem like she's conjuring up fiction. I had made a plan to ask her the same questions repeatedly over the next few days and see if any detail didn't match up. Not only from what she told me, but from what she said in other platforms. Eliza said she moved to LA when she was 17. Her parents set her up with an apartment. Within 2 days, she said she was trafficked. This is where I guess I get some of the story messed up. Is there a switch in the guy at the moment? The photographer introduces me to the musician. I asked for names, but she refused. We get into the specific discussion later, but I wanted to establish her side of what happened in LA first. Are the photographer and the musician together, like physically? She asked. I mean, like, are they teams? Do you think I know that? She said with some hostility. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. How soon after moving to LA is this happening? Immediately, within a few days, like 48 hours. So she recognized the musician the moment she met him. I suppose I made a surprised face. This is West Hollywood we're talking about, she said. I just been to Hollywood and it seemed like the kind of city where dreams and nightmares coexist so tightly. It's kind of hard to distinguish one from another. I went over to the musician's place. I don't remember if he came and picked me up, but I'm sure he probably did. We went over there, hanging out, and had some beer. That's when everything went down. He handed me something to smoke, and I smoked it. I think they called it ice or glass. I think it was something like crystal meth. Do you remember what you were talking in that moment? My dreams were coming true. Do you not feel any sense of dread being away from your family and being with these people? I was in the dream world, she said. Up until that point, I didn't even know that evil was a thing that happened. You didn't learn about evil from church, I asked. I understood that her father went to seminary school in Denver and that religion was important to the family. I did not understand what evil was until LA, she said. Was this your first relationship? I asked. No. Was he violent? He wasn't violent, but I'm kind of grateful that I was drinking and on some drugs. At that time, I was really thin because I was modeling. So I didn't have any meat on my bones. That little alcohol really messed me up. And the day he basically told me, I'm going to sell you for drugs. I was in the room when he brokered the deal. He called the guy. I don't know if it was all planned out in advance or whatever. I don't know. I'm assuming that this is the thing they did. And you consider this a relationship? I probably would have thought that, but I wasn't used to having male relationships, not like that. Did sex with him come into place before all this? It was clear there was no choice. The thing is, like, I hadn't come for that. That wasn't part of my lifestyle. When he called the buyer, were you thinking anything like, what the fuck is this phone call? No, I was just told we needed more drugs, so we're going to sell you. And I was like, holy shit, I'm a child prostitute. I was embarrassed. I knew immediately I would never tell anyone about this. The musician dropped her off at a house in West Hollywood Hills. Can you describe this man, the buyer? Old, fat, ugly guy. I could probably recreate pieces of his room. It's weird what your brain remembers. His bed was red, but not blood red. He had a red blanket. It was a really nice place. And there was multiple people living there. Were they there for you too? Not for me. They came and went. Lots of drugs and alcohol. How long were you there? I can't say. Maybe days, a week. Were you on drugs? I asked. Yes. Thank God. It was not a pleasant experience, she said. It was scary. I don't know what particularly happened, but I think I started to kick a little bit. I think I became the problem. I wasn't eating. I wasn't drinking. I believe I had overdosed, and that saved my life. This happens sometimes with victims. I was left for dead, but I survived. I thought it was my fault. I woke up in Cedars-Sinai. No friends out there. The nurse told me she treated Kurt Cobain once, and that he and I have the same eyes. He died a few years earlier. That moment eventually would keep me sober. Maybe she was just gassing me up to make me feel better, but it gave me confidence. How did you get back home? My parents bought a plane ticket. Somehow they knew. Didn't know anything else about it. My dad dropped me off in LA. I had blonde hair, and when I arrived back there, I had jet black hair. Everything I brought home was in a trash bag. My parents didn't recognize me, she said. Now, this is interesting because we do have videos of that time when she was with the musician Gerard Way. And there was periods during that relation that she had black hair. And there was times during that relationship that she had blonde hair. So the people that really hate you are demanding these details. I said as a way to say I'm sorry for asking, but I didn't know how else to cover the story. One must work with the primary source first, and then spool what you can from there. I can't reverse engineer it. It's like gore porn, Eliza said, referring to the gruesome details that many are saying they need to hear from her to believe any trafficking took place. You're hitting me up. I'm wanting to know if my got ripped. I don't know that I can say that on YouTube. A part of me hopes you're lying because I want none of this to be true. She went back to recalling what she could of the overdose. Everybody's got stuff that's happened to them, she said. I was lying in bed last night thinking about all of this. I'm just so grateful that I'm still alive. So, like, it's sad, yeah, but, like, bro, think about how much life I've had since then. I'm so grateful despite all the stuff I did so much dope. Crap. I gotta be careful what I say on YouTube. I think she felt like she had to say something positive because my face was probably as grim as a scientist standing with their doomsday clock. So, do you remember anything leading up to or after the overdose? I guess it started at the buyer's house, and then they dropped me in the musician's hallway. I'm surprised they even called anyone. They were probably like, we aren't going to deal with this dead girl. A lot of people have been looking at your ass, asking themselves, how could this happen to a politician? It looks like she had a nice family. That's the most disgusting insult. She said, you can be a survivor and be other things. You can have family. A lot of survivors I know are married, have kids. It's not like you're a survivor and that's all you are. It could be fully in trauma, probably on disability, just rotting away, still off the LA experience. That's why I'm like, at this point, I don't care what people say. Listen to what I survived. That's crazy. What? She's manipulating what it is that they're... The thing of it is that you're not typically both married with kids and getting sex trafficked at the same time. People aren't saying you can't have been a victim and eventually get married, eventually have kids, but typically the marriage and the trafficking thing doesn't happen at the same time. That's just not, it's just not the way that it works. They're gonna go after somebody that, nobody would miss. And so my thing here is that her family was a highly respected family. She's somebody that would be missed. There are some things like where you have kids that start talking with someone online. So I guess that's maybe not entirely accurate. Young victims do get talking to people online, and they agree to meet that person, and they disappear. That does happen, but typically the parents don't even know. From the stories that I have read and what I understand of the issue, typically the parents don't even know. They're not like driving you to the airport or whatever, so you could go out to these people. My parents wouldn't have done anything to help me. They were like, you want to go? You're going to have to figure out how to get there on your own. They would not have done anything to help me. They would just be like, well, she's going to be 18 soon. This is just so weird. I'm just trying to understand that this part actually happened. What are some people saying she was actually doing when she was 17 compared to what actually happened when she was 17? That's what I'm trying to make sense of. She mentioned how anyone from any status with any type of family life can fall victim to trafficking. No, if you are married, you are basically damaged goods. That's the way I've always understood trafficking. These things have a shelf life, and they may only want to have anything to do with you for a couple years. She mentioned how anyone from any status with any type of family can fall victim to trafficking. Later, she told me she needs to dye her hair black to make her look like a boy. I think that's what they were into, she said. She said that she believes there were transfer kids in the house as well in the Hollywood hills. Were you sold multiple times? I asked. My first trafficking experience was short. She said just that one time. What was it like when you got home? I asked. I forgot how to write. I had to learn how to write. What? Huh? How did this happen unless you have some sort of brain trauma? Which I suppose could happen if you've overdosed. This is weird. I forgot how to write. I had to learn how to write again. English was like another language. I was so fucked up and I didn't know how to order food at a restaurant. I was so fucked up that I stayed sober for 8.5 years just because I was terrified. I was so fucked up that I never told anyone and promised myself I would never tell anyone because I was so traumatized. I was so fucked up. I've been trying to remember how I got to the airport. I don't know if the tractor drove me, if police officer drove me, or if I drove my own car. I can't believe I'm alive after that. The drug overdose didn't kill me. The trafficker didn't kill me. The sex abuse didn't kill me. That was also the time when HIV was still making its rounds pretty heavily. But during that time, it would have been a big concern. The fact that I survived and had come out, I can't believe it. And after you flew home, you were sort of comatose. I had no strength. No, not strength. I had no mental strength. Hearing the story made me sick. I stopped eating. This was all her account. She could be totally lying. It could be true. Either way, the story makes me feel sick. If it's a lie, I'm sick that someone would go this far to tell a ward lie. I'm sick that if it's true, I'm just asking here to relive some dark trauma. It's important for me to hear your side of the story. I know you said it in some podcasts, but I need to hear it in person, not in a studio, not with cameras on, lights, and makeup. When I'm talking to other survivors, we laugh a lot. We joke, not about the abuse, but we have a dark humor. Not all the time, but like amongst survivors, we weave in and out of intense conversations all the time. It reminded me of my own family and friends, friends and family in the AA whose sobriety anniversaries I've attended, and the way speakers can go from being stung by their own depravity to laughing at their own depravity. We came back to the Quad Cities after OLA, I said. I doxed I was a mess. She said, I honestly don't remember going to the airport. I do not know. Her parents picked her up from the same port Eliza picked me up from. She said she spent more than a week in her bed as her mother tended her. She said she wasn't talking and hardly eating. Did you stay with her a while after that? When I got better, I just went back to LA. Again, I'm thinking as a father here, it's hard for me to understand how I wouldn't do whatever I could with my daughter from going back to a place that appeared to destroy her. I'd arranged to speak with her parents tomorrow, and I thought I'd ask how they dealt with that, whether or not you, reader, are believing Eliza. Perhaps she put herself in a very bad situation. Perhaps you don't even believe she was trapped and sold for sexual drugs. And even if the overdose is the only thing that's real, her parents then would have been destroyed version of their daughter, would have seen a destroyed version of their daughter. Their young daughter. I have a hard time putting myself in their shoes without putting up a fight to prevent her to return to LA. But my kids are still young, and I know I put my parents through hell when I was 17, 18, 19. Nothing could have stopped me then, too, despite all the nightmares waiting for me with open arms. I share my concerns about how and why she returned to LA. I'm sitting here like, this is literally no test, which said, what you're witnessing is full text abuse. After first traveling, I come home and I went back to LA. I called him. He would not talk to me. The minister said yes. He wouldn't talk to me. He just told me to go to AA. Why would you go back to him? I don't know. That's crazy. I don't want to miss the opportunity. She said, what was the opportunity? Being a rock star. That's why I came out there. I wanted to be a model. So you won't know names. Can you say it's a famous person? I asked. There are people involved in my story that are very high profile. Maybe they aren't a household name, but I think if and when it all comes out, people are like, oh, wow. You go back to him and see him after the phone call, I asked. I didn't see him physically, I just called him. She said, did you go to AA? I went to AA in Chinatown. I believe it was on a Monday. The meeting itself was called Chinatown. It was in West Hollywood. What were you thinking about yourself at the time? I thought I had been a child prostitute, she said. Is that what you consider yourself? Until I was in my 30s, I didn't even know about trafficking. That wasn't my language at all. My first advocate is the one who told me she believed I'd been trafficked. Once I told her my story, I had no language. I thought I was the one that was committing crimes. When she says committing crimes, plurally, she is referencing her second trafficking incident, which we discussed in the later part of the series. At the time, I thought, oh, I'm an addict. I wasn't thinking about the trafficking. I was thinking, I just have drugs and alcohol problems. I remember I tried to tell my AA sponsor what had happened with the guys in LA. It was still on my spirit. I was still in my heart. I was very young. Did the man in LA sold you get in trouble? I don't know, she said. I haven't looked. I almost thought about looking right before I came out here, but I can't. What keeps you from looking? I asked. Why go back? because you want to make sure that this person isn't doing this to other people. There's a part of me that has sympathy with people that they have. It's just very hard for them to go through the process of pressing charges. I just when you find some solace of knowing he was in jail, or I started to say before she cut me off, I don't think he's alive, she said. But you could be out there preventing others from getting hurt by him if he's still alive, I said. She took a deep breath before responding. I understand, I do, she said. I think about myself. There were multiple times I tried and it never went well for me. She said, referring to the second man who she says abused and trapped her. Look, at this point, this is number one. There are laws that aren't going to work in my favor. The LA stuff is way in the past. Sometimes there are provisions where if it's over 10 years, but like generally speaking, it's all he said, she said. Simply accusing someone with no evidence, it would not end well for me. And when I say no evidence, I mean like no evidence. Like I have no evidence for this first story, right? So literally the most he said, she said, and nobody's gonna be like, you know what? Yeah, she's right. When people read this that don't trust, will say you're just making this shit up. I said most of this is going to run off faith in me as a writer, but not on you too. I could lie to you right now and say he's so and so. I could lie to you right now and say he's dead. I could lie to you right now and say he's in jail, she said. It would have been more advantageous for me to lie. It would have sounded better if I could lie, but I told you the truth. I'm telling you the truth. I know what the haters are going to say, but I'm telling you the truth. I think people not hearing names means that you must be keeping things vague to keep the story straight, I said. The problem is sometimes when you let things fester, you start drinking, doing drugs, getting into abusive relationships. Is that why you haven't been as fully open with your story? There's a multitude of reasons, she said. When I stopped court publicly, I had already been an advocate for a while. Privately, I wasn't intentionally like, oh, I'm going to work in the shadows. It was like, there's millions and trillions of different ways to be an advocate. I didn't want to be a public advocate. I didn't want to be a public survivor. I can unpack why I didn't want to be a public servant. Look at my current life. That's why I didn't want to be a public survivor. Believe it or not, I didn't want to be a public survivor. The first appearance public as a survivor of human trafficking and an advocate for a survivor was through an article on the Daily Wire written by Amanda Prestigiacomo. She said she reached out to the Daily Wire at the beginning of the COVID lockdown. She wanted to see if they'd cover the lockdown, had to cover the way the lockdowns would affect human trafficking. The lockdowns, she predicted, would increase risk for vulnerabilities. I didn't reach out to them to cover me. I didn't want to be public about my story or advocacy, she said. Eliza claims she did not want her name or face included in the article. But according to her, Prestigiacomo had sought to include the details as she believed it would give the article more reach. The two went back and forth about this until it allowed them to use her name and image. Prestigiacomo previously tweeted this about her decision. She asked Eliza to use her name. Eliza came to me during the pandemic, was serious, worried about if her concern was always with others. She had so much knowledge about how to address this vital issue, otherwise largely ignored. I asked to include her name photo because it would bring more attention to the issue. I don't regret asking her to do so. She's one of the fiercest fighters I know. I'm told now she's being personally right now. She's helping Elma's child exploitation on Twitter. Strange timing. Eliza and Prestigiacomo also direct messaged each other in conversation. There are screenshots from that conversation. You didn't want to tell her the story, you wanted to help others get out as much information as possible. You didn't want to make it about you. And I thought your name and face would help bring more attention to it, so I asked you to include a message Prestigiacomo. As far as we can tell from the specific things, Eliza didn't immediately jump to the idea of notoriety through advocacy. At least not in the very beginning, through this video. Even so, I asked her about the actress that she's done and has been purely for fame. I literally told everyone from day one that I wanted. My parents knew that when I was a little girl. She said she's already seen levels of fame. I believe referencing her past doing hair and makeup with bands such as My Chemical Romance and covers for Spin magazine, something we will get into later in the conversation. So, honestly, I don't really think that this article is what people wanted to hear. He's so far not doing anything to try to poke holes into anything, she says. I want people to remember this, she told me. If you look through my history, I've never had trouble hanging around famous people. When I become a survivor yet, I had full popping Instagram. Like, that was just sitting there once I got back control of it. I believe she's referencing her relationship to Driveway, the same with Mike Corman, as well as how her Instagram was stolen from her years later, well after her relationship with Gerard. A lot of people are seeing you in various videos looking happy or calling your mom to see how proud she is of you being in a music video. Are these things proof that you are only doing it for fame? What do you think people are missing about you? Well, number one, I don't think people understand human trafficking, even though you can just Google what it means. And then, like, listen. And then, like, also, listen to a bunch of survivor stories and go to the Human Trafficking Hotline or the Polaris Project website. My entire feed for the last 2 years has been dedicated to educate people. And clearly, no one was reading any of it. That actually has been one of the biggest hits of this whole thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, they weren't reading what I'm posting. Yeah. She can do it, but other pieces they don't understand is abuse or abusive situations. Like, one, quite frankly, Shane could be my trafficker. Or I could be your trafficker. We're at a truck stop, and we could be going somewhere and looking like we're having a lovely conversation. And I could leave here and get in a car, and no one would be any of the wiser. If anyone snapped a picture of us right now, they'd be like, oh, they look like friends or a relationship normal. Because that's a good place to ask the clip of you on Michael Mouse's podcast, where you seem to give the definition of trafficking as though it's just catfishing. No, she said. That case is very nuanced, and I should never have brought it up on his program, because in retrospect, that's beyond what the general population can comprehend as far as trafficking is concerned. Why does she think the general public can't comprehend as far... But I guess I'm trying my best to unpack it right now. My former abuser, the one she would meet later in her life, had access to my Instagram account. I didn't always have access to it. He had a lot of accounts created in my name. He made dating profiles, anything you could possibly think of. Please all to make money. Wherever he thought he could make money in a hustle is where he was. So, like, literally in the beginning of the Malice interview, I gave an actual description of what human trafficking is. I go over the whole thing. By the UN's definition, not just in the United States. The UN definition included illegal organ trafficking as well as human trafficking. And anyone under the age of 18 engaging in commercial sex is a trafficking victim. I go all over that in the beginning of that interview. I don't know why they're cherry picking that one part of it that I did a horrible job explaining, but how can I explain the situation? Regardless, even old Twitter investigated it. Old Twitter investigated the account the abuser created and decided to take it down. And because they paused the profile, I got my first meeting with Twitter corporate that Jack Dorsey set up. I want to be very careful about what I say right now. Jack and I were acquainted, and I never asked for help because I was scared. I didn't know. I was like, what's going on here? I didn't ask for his help pulling it down. I went through proper channels. Technically, this was the only way I could report it, an impersonation account. What else could I have reported it as? There was no explicit human trafficking. It wasn't like I said, I'm selling this girl. It was like just connected to my Instagram, and I hadn't set it up, but I wanted to let them know that I have an abuser out there that set this imposter account up. I did not set up that profile. She said the abuser made it so that Twitter would redirect to her Instagram, which he had control of. Now, to be clear, remember, this is what she says was taking place during the second time she was trafficked. Okay, so this is the But I guess what needs better understanding is, at what point was she dating Gerard Way in the middle of all this? That's what's not making sense. Sometimes I still find dating profiles on me. I didn't set those dating profiles up, so obviously there's something nefarious going on. So with Twitter, there's no way to report human trafficking. There still isn't. You can only report child sexual abuse material or non-consensual nudity. You cannot report straight up human trafficking. You can't report labor trafficking. That's one of my biggest suggestions for them, because people still sell people from labor trafficking on Twitter and Facebook. There's a huge thing about that with Facebook in a different language, Arabic specifically, to the point where Apple Store is starting to pull them down because of it. So I get like why people wouldn't understand that, but like that's kind of a lot of not my problem. I'm just telling these stories how it was. There are people rejoicing now on how many Twitter followers you lose. I could lose thousands of followers. I don't care. I could have 5 followers on Twitter, and I don't care. It's just Twitter. It could go all the way tomorrow. I love Twitter for a lot of reasons, but You're also supposedly pregnant with Elon's kid, I said. What? Wait, well, so wait a minute. He got... You're gonna go from all of that. Like, that's just... That is just weird. I've never heard that she's pregnant with Elon's kid. What the... Ugh. She tries on a cowboy hat as I ask her about Tesla and Elon's baby. I love Elon Musk, but we weren't friends previously. It's not that I wouldn't be, it's just that we really just met on Twitter Spaces. We've never met in person. He's busy, so there wasn't time to become friends, even if he desired a friendship. Same goes for Twitter VP Trust and Safety Ella, actually. We met on Spaces, but haven't met in person. Okay? We drove past her house. It was midnight. The porch lights reflected off the fields of snow. She pointed to a car that was in the snow. She said it was broken down. As she dropped me off at her parents' house, we got confirmation that this address had been doxed. I thought this would be a crazy place in the middle of nowhere. Just show up unannounced and hostile, but who knows? I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they came to the house while you're here, she said, but the way the laws are, they can loiter. I hint that her dad has his own way to keep the property secure. I had arranged to talk with her parents in the morning. I wanted to hear their side of everything Eliza had told me that night. Eliza drove up the long, narrow country road back to her house, which she had told me her parents let her live in. I felt like I was standing on the moon. It seemed as though I was the farthest I could possibly be in the sights from tech giants. Even still, Twitter was very much present in the vast cold fields in nowhere, Illinois. It felt as though all the internet was an anvil of starlight orbiting close above, monitoring my every move. So, what was the point of this article? What was the point of this article? I was gonna be like, what did he prove? He proved nothing about the timeline. Which is still in question. I don't actually know what other friends say about what was supposedly happening when she was 15 and 17 years old. There had to be other people that were aware that she planned to go to LA. This is so bizarre, and I'm sure that a lot of people are gonna have a lot to say about this. And this was gonna be all about me contacting NCOSE, and now I don't really feel like that I have time, because I have to get dressed to go to work. So, I mean, I would love to be wrong about Eliza and say, yeah, something horrific really did happen to her when she was 17, because I would rather her not be lying. But Shane's article has done nothing. It just doesn't answer any questions. So, I don't know what to. It just doesn't answer anything. I'm texting somebody. It doesn't answer anything we learned in the other article recently. What I think was the Daily Beast. Alright, well, I gotta get ready for my boring day job. So, I've got a really, really important messages that I've got to reply to before I go to work. So, ladies and gents, as always, remember the world is really big. Um, but and you might be small, but make you can make a difference. You can. Um, you know, all the time takes sometimes is one person to create a ripple of change. I mean, look at everything that has happened on the internet. And that change can be good and that change could be bad. But it's up to you. You have that power. You have that agency. And people can manipulate you into thinking that they've taken that away from you, but they can't. So, peace.